are directly affected with the solar project. So we're going to start off with the items that we have.
If you are logged in on your phone.
Yeah, I'm trying to unlock
Okay. We'll come through the delay and we'll hear it.
I didn't know it was still locked in, I apologize.
If we have two computers in this building logged on, we start getting bounced and we haven't figured out why it does that.
Okay. So Rob, go ahead with
Okay, yeah, the two items I had in regard to solar, just as an update, provided you as requested, letters of support for House Bill 118 for Representatives Lanise and Russo, and then a letter of support for Senate Bill 52 for Senator Coonsey. Those should have been in your signature packet, I believe. Okay, if not, I have them and I can get it to you after the meeting. So I have a copy with me. I thought I may have put it in the packet, but I do have a copy here in my folder. And then the other item, we have.
I'm going to work through that one right there. I'm going to make a motion to pass the support letters to the state reps officially opposing the Senate and the House bill.
Supporting the bill.
Yeah, supporting the bill to oppose the product.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, and then the other item, I forwarded the email to you. We have the resolution to intervene, and then we also have the notice of intervention that would accompany that to the siting board and then to Invenergy's legal counsel. So we have those. Once the application, if it's found to be complete, then we would receive a notification from the siting board. And then from that time, we have 30 days then to submit that resolution from the trustees with the notice of intervention. So we have those, and whenever we get that, if it is a completed application, it'll be on that first agenda afterwards.
You good with it? So I'm going to make a motion to approve sending the motion in to be interveners into case 2016-79.
Well, there's actually a resolution that's specific, and if it's okay, I'll just put it on the agenda that as soon as we get the notice from the siting board, if it's considered a completed application, it's a formal resolution that we'll have to read in the record. And then once you approve that, then I will submit it immediately. And actually it'll be our legal counsel that submits it. So once we have it on the agenda and it's approved, then we send it to legal counsel and then they submit it with the notice of intervention.
Okay. So there's nothing to do on that tonight.
No, not until we get notified if and when the application is considered complete.
Okay. So other than that, I'm going to make a comment. So we can't attend meetings unless we call a public meeting. That's why Kathy was at the meeting the other night. So I requested that they audio the meeting so I could listen to some of the comments and the stuff that came across. There was some stuff that wasn't 100% correct, and there was a couple things that I wanted to address. The first was one, I heard a comment that said that the trustees should intervene in this case because we have free legal representation from the county prosecutor, and that's not correct. We have our own law director, and anything that he would do to intervene would be on this at $250 an hour. The second thing was there was a comment made that about the Darby Accord Town Center being a pipe dream, that it would never happen. I disagree with that comment. My opinion is that it will happen. And the zoning's already in place. It was from 11 years ago. Doesn't affect, it goes from Coal Line Road to Broad Street. And that's the southern section does. And I believe as soon as water and sewer gets addressed in that area, there will be somebody that builds there. But they will have to follow the Darby Accord guidelines. Other than that, I didn't hear, I couldn't hear. The tape was really hard. You could hear the people that were at the mic, but the people in the audience asking questions, you couldn't really hear. So with that, I'll open it up to whoever wants to have a question or to speak.
Just to address what you were saying about the Darby Town Center, I think the reason he said that was because of the water and sewer. Because to get the sewer out of the town center to Columbus for treatment, there has to be some kind of a pump station.
Correct.
About Alton.
Yeah, or alternative sewage approved by the county somehow.
Yeah. That's a big cost item.
So you had mentioned that from Cool Wine to Broad Street, it would be part of that area there. Aren't they planning on putting solar panels?
Well, now that's the point that I was trying to make is that, you know, that zoning, if somebody, a developer came in, that zoning guideline is already there. And at some point, that property there could, as a property owner, you know, it's up to the property owner.
Oh, so he can lease it out to.
He could do whatever, you know, if he wanted to, if he doesn't get the solar approved, one of his other options would be to look for a developer to pursue the Darby Accord.
Perfect. And about 2/3 of the acreage in that master plan is north of Broad Street for the town center.
And I'll just say Rod Pritchard, so it's on the record. But I just want to say thank you for that comment about the Darby Accord, because one of our concerns is that we bought into that process 11 years ago. So we knew when we bought into that, there was a potential for development, but controlled development in that area, which would impact our property values, and with what they would have to build out there, probably increase those property values. And obviously that's a huge concern for us that are living in that community by putting in this proposed solar plant. It's not a farm, and let's not call it that. You know, it's a generating facility. And, you know, we did a lot of work to get that Darby Accord done. And Steve, you were right there in the heart of those battles to get that done. And so we need to support that. We need to support local control. And so thank you for that resolution to support those two proposed bills in the House and Senate currently, because we need to have more local control over what's going on. The Accord did that for us. Our zoning has done that for us here in this township. And to say to us, it doesn't matter what your zoning is, we can't do anything about it, that's wrong. And so the township needs to say that and support its own zoning and support its own plans as we've all bought into. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yes. Can you state your name and address?
Yeah, if you're going to speak, if you could please come up to the podium, it just helps the folks that are watching remotely.
Okay,
That way they'll be able to hear. And
may take some time, folks.
We're all right there with you.
Okay.
Yeah, lights on.
Okay, my name is Jill Drexel. I live at 7617 Cool Line Road, Galloway, Ohio, 43119. Is that enough?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, first off, John Gallagher, way back when, he pushed through the zoning that we currently have.
Hey, Mom, can you put up the list of attendees on this? Yep.
What did you want me to do?
Just hang on one second.
Okay,
So just to be fair, there is a Squire Galbert on the call.
right.
And it looks like there is a couple people from Infinity on the call. So
Okay.
just so everybody knows, to be upfront, that they're on the Zoom meeting. So
Now,
sorry to
when
interrupt you.
in the 80s, when they tried to put in a helicopter facility on the property. It wasn't allowed. It went away. But the thing I was told by the legal counsel at the time was that in John Galbraith's will, he willed it so that it was to stay agricultural for 100 years past his death, and he died in the 80s. So I don't understand how, I know what they're doing for, they're leasing the land. They're not selling it, they're leasing it. My point is it was pointed out by this gentleman here, is that this isn't a farm. You can call it a farm, but it isn't. It's an energy producing plant. Somebody told me they could take it by eminent domain. No, they can't. They aren't a utility. If they're selling a product to AEP, if General Motors sells a car to AEP, they're not eligible for eminent domain. It applies here as well. So basically, our zoning for agricultural and for residential should stay. This thing that they're planning is, first off, you can go to the internet. You can see on 60 Minutes, they've had programs about electromagnetic pulse radiation. And at the other meeting, someone on Invergy's site said, oh, it's no more than your microwave. Have you ever read your microwave? Your microwave is 2.2 cubic feet, and they tell you not to stand in front of it when it is in operation because it can be hazardous to your health. Okay, you're going to put 15 feet high, 2,500 acres on 3 sides of my house. I go to mow the lawn and I'm going to be a baked potato. I'm sorry. Anybody who considers this a good idea needs to live at my house so that we die at the same time. I think that as our representatives, there should be no hesitation in your minds about supporting our position. It is your fiduciary duty to represent your people. That's us. That's us. Does anybody here want the solar farm? Anybody?
No.
Hello?
No.
Okay.
No.
And there's a lot more out there. People who don't use computers, people who are retired. I talked to one tonight and he said, I don't know enough about this. There's a lot of people out there that will probably be opposed, but this was dropped on us in December. And I did some basic research and I found all of these reasons, health reasons, property value reasons. My best friend is a woman who is past president of the Columbus Realtors. Our properties won't be worth a nickel once this thing goes in. Because right now they're worth, because they are nice properties, plus they have the view, the quiet, the peace. The government doesn't provide us with streetlights, sewers, water, waste pickup, nothing. We get nothing for our tax dollars. Many of us don't even have kids in the schools. I've lived here since '92. I've never had a child in the school system, but I pay my taxes. And the bottom line is, if we have well water. I worked at General Motors in maintenance for almost 30 years. And I can tell you that there isn't a pipe made or a hose or anything else that won't leak eventually. The stuff that goes through them to transport the energy will leak. It's going to go into our groundwater. It's poison. We'll be bathing in it and drinking it. So besides the radiation, you are essentially condemning the children and the adults in this area, not to mention the wildlife, to death. I just can't believe that the reason they built those solar things in the country is because you got one farmer, you lease his land, he goes to Florida and sits on a beach and doesn't have to work anymore. That's not us. We live here. And our properties won't be worth anything. We can't sell. If they want to build it here, then they have to give us the option. Buy us out. Let us go someplace where we can have the life that we had before you. It's a power plant. The difference between a solar farm and a power plant is at least the power plant has concrete and steel that keeps some of it inside. This is going to be outside. It's going to blind the birds from the glare. The stuff that comes off the panels is toxic. I mean, this is such a bad idea to do in a neighborhood in Franklin County. This is incredible that they even are trying this. And I'm hoping that my government, that I pay my multitudinous taxes and haven't gotten anything from them, will stand up for me and us. Sorry,
No.
to make this personal, sorry, guys.
Oh, great job.
I don't know about that. But in any case, I hope you'll listen to me and us. Please,
Thank you.
thank you.
Hi, my name is Tim Radich. I live at 950 Merdan. That's pretty much it. You know, I've been part of this community, and one of the things I really enjoy, especially Steve, I know you do this, we go hunting and fishing. You know, wildlife means something to us, you know. And 2 days ago, my wife was driving down to a neighbor's 3 doors down from you, Kathy, and 16 deer ran across the road right there and right next to Rod's farm. 16. And they're out there racing in the field. Not, you know, there's foxes, there's coyotes, there's just about everything you can imagine. And if you take 1,700 acres, there's nowhere for them to go. Honestly, if you box that in, you're going to have, you think you have a rat problem in here? You're going to have deer running down the road. You're going to have foxes, and you're going to have coyotes. You know, explain to the neighbors why they lost their dog because coyote picked it up and took it out. I mean, if you take away, they're going to survive anyway, but they're not going to have no place to go out there. They're going to come in town. And seriously, you need to think about that. And if you don't realize what the animal life is out there, I mean, it's obvious. So whatever you do, I want you to think about that because nature is one of our most valuable resources. And if you take that land away from nature and you cut that off, then there is no other place for them to go. And it's going to cause you more headaches, and it's going to cause this township and these people more headaches than they really realize. I mean, we need to get this. We just started. I mean, we need to get our message out to every voter in this district and let them fully understand what's going on. Right now, you just got a handful of people that's impacted exactly because that's where it is staring us in our face when we get up and we look out the window. That's what we're seeing. But the impact is not only just us and our land value and the wildlife, it's going to impact everybody else that's voting for you guys in this part of this community. So, you know, I just ask that you really think hard about this. And it's not about the money, all right? Because I ain't seen a bank truck follow a hearse yet. And, you know, I don't care how much money you make or is increase in this, it's not going to be worth what the impact's going to be. And thank you for your time.
Thanks. Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
So I'd like to say one more thing if I could. Just that it's not that we're not against green energy. There's I'm sorry, Rob Connor, 611 Vernon Road. We're not against green energy. There's a place for that. It's just not here. There's, drive down 71, drive west on I-70, anywhere outside the city, there's thousands of acres of farmland that don't have homes around them. It's not going to impact people. I wish they would consider, relocating, move somewhere where it's not going to impact people. Put along the freeway, as people drive up, all the green people can look at it and go, oh, great, look, there's solar energy. They don't have to look at it. They can look at it as they drive by. But if it's not in their backyard, they don't want it in their backyard either. That's the same problem. We don't want it in our backyard. So, we just wish they'd reconsider where they're going to put it. This is not the appropriate place for it. So that's my thought.
Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
So,
There's a hand raised on it.
okay, but I'm going to take so just so everybody in this room realizes that the zoning, our township zoning is a well thought of zoning department. But this is a state project that trumps county zoning and township zoning. So that's why we support the House and the Senate bills, that we think it should become, there should be a, local hearing on these projects. So there is a little time, officially, that we don't have to take the interveners until we get notified. And that's sometime down the road in May or June.
Yeah.
But we're willing to be interveners. But I just wanted the people in here to realize that the townships and this project has no legal standing other than being an intervener into the case. So with that, I see there's a hand raised.
Yeah, I have Squire Galbraith. I'm going to unmute him here.
Oh,
Squire, you with us?
yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's kind of hard if you can get a little
Yeah.
level raise up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure how this would work. I'm out of town, so I'm glad I could contribute and participate. As you may know, our family has owned this land for 85 years, back from 1935 by my grandfather. Actually, my real name is John W. Galbraith II. And we're very concerned with being good environmental stewards of the land. We've spent, 85 years trying to be good environmental stewards. And believe me, we've had opportunities in the past to, whether it be to sell the land, whether it be to, for another use, whether it be to make top dollar. So, that's not our concern. And again, we're concerned about the land in the future. About 18 years ago, we sold or donated about 1,000 acres to the metro parks for everyone to enjoy. So we're not trying to get the top dollar. And we're not trying to get as much out of the land as possible. That's not, if we were trying to get the top dollar, we've done a whole land management plan and done boards, architectural boards, and for a master development. So we have chosen not to do that. And we would like to do this by right. So it's not changing the zoning. We're not trying to build a Walmart. We're not trying to build a prison or homeless shelter or whatever. We have the neighborhood in mind. I mean, we're also there as well. I mean, we're going to be a part of, we still have more land, so we're still going to be there. we're still going to be your neighbors. We want to minimize the impact on the Darby. They want to minimize the impact on the Darby. Invenergy and this project, they've had meetings with the Darby Accord, and they will have more meetings with the big Darby Accord. I believe, I'm not a technical scientist, but I believe it's zero net carbon. So it's good for the environment. We're not creating a coal burning plant. You know, 4.5, you all might have heard or read in the past, but almost $4.5 million is going into Franklin County annually for this, to the citizens of Franklin County. So that's including land payments, that's including tax dollars. And I'm not a tax accountant or a tax lawyer, but I can almost guarantee you that there will be more money generated for the government from this land through a potential pilot program, through a potential tax program, through Invenergy, through this system, than what we're paying now with CAUV, with agriculture. I can guarantee you, and there's going to be no extra demands on the services. There's not going to be extra school kids, whatever. So I think it's a win-win in that aspect. There's also, as Rod Pritchard and many others know, there's going to be pollinating flowers, good for the bees and butterflies and nature. So that's another one of the positive aspects. One of the positive aspects that I didn't talk about from an environmental standpoint is the water runoff. You know, water runoff from farming, as you all know, the land is bare approximately 6 months a year. Well, now it's not going to be bare. And whether it be farming 6 months a year or sod farming or whatever, it's not going to be bare. So it's going to help with the water runoff. There's not going to be chemicals. There's not going to be the chemicals that you get from the farming. So you're going to get that benefit. You know, and I guess I just would ask people to look at the website of Invenergy's and this website for the Pleasant Prairie Solar, and look at the facts and see what is actually going to happen. Invenergy is, I think, the largest in North America private solar, private renewable energy company. So they've done this before. So they have been through this many years. And so I just would ask people to look at that and look at the facts. And I guess lastly, I'm just going to say, I'm not going to address each and every comment that I've heard. You know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, which is great. That's why we live in America. But I don't think it's productive necessarily right now for me to go through and, you know, do a tit for tat and try to discuss every little comment. But I would just, you know, ask people, as I said before, to educate themselves on this project. And the Ohio Power Siting Board, which has the ultimate authority in this process, has a great deal of experience in this. And again, this is not the first project that the Power Siting Board is going through. So do they know all the answers? No, but I think they've been through this many times. And I just wish people would, talk to people, whether it be from Invenergy or, you can have input with the Ohio Power Signing Board, or definitely look at the website. But before people think they're gonna, try and do something horrible, this is not going to be that project. So anyways, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Yeah,
Where does this Squire Galbraith guy live?
Probably in Florida, right?
He doesn't live here, does he? I know they own property here and all that, have forever. I knew John personally before he died many, many years ago. He would never let this happen.
Nope.
No way.
And he donated that land, 500 acres, and got a $13 million tax credit. So that's money, any way you look at it. And he's being paid per year to let them use his land at our expense.
Are they putting these on the west side of Derby? I bet they're not. Why don't they put them around Mr. Galbraith's property? So he can have them right out of his backyard.
Hey, it's good.
Good for you. Sorry.
you're good. Action time.
It is passion time. Scott Newberry, 966 Meridian Road, spoke last trustee meeting. First, I'd like to say thank you guys very much for one, resolving to support the House bill and Senate bill. Two, also committing to being an intervener in the process. Again, that's a sign of goodwill towards the community. This is just a small portion of the many people that have similar feelings. In that thread, I would like to ask you guys to also try to coordinate with Pleasant Township. I'm not sure how much involvement they have yet or if they're on the radar. I've not been speaking at their meetings because I don't live there. Also, possibly with the Parks Department, just anyone else coordinate with. Briefly touching on the legal representation, it was my understanding and looking through previous case dockets with the siting board that any issue that a township has with a state level agency like this is automatically handled by the prosecuting attorney. I don't know jurisdiction wise, misled, but every document I've read has been from all the other towns that have dealt with this so far with the siting board. The county prosecuting attorney was the legal representation, but perhaps
they are the legal representation for a lot of townships. Many of the smaller townships do go through the county prosecutor, but Prairie Township has had a law director for I don't know how many years, but quite a few, because a larger township functions much like a city, and we have more issues going on. It's difficult to work through the prosecutor's office with the volume that we sometimes have.
Understood. Thank you for pointing that out, because again, we're learning this on the fly. Unfortunately, we all have jobs, lives. Some of us retired, some of us work full time, and we're all having to become experts on this, as rapidly as possible. So there are going to be a few misses. We're pulling together as much information as we can. I can, if you desire, give you some contact info with some attorneys that have a lot of experience with siting board. If your legal counsel wants additional, support, because it is total court. It's not your speciality. You got to know essentially the procedure and the rules. You got to know the lay of the land. To address some of the comments that we just heard Mr. Squire touch on, just right off the rip, anyone that signs a good neighbor agreement or has any type of vested interest in the project going forward is often required contractually to be a proponent for the project, whether it be in newspaper print, in submitting data or testimony to planning board. That's so one that stands to benefit from the project, give a glowing review. Not only is that not surprising, it's contractually obligated. So that just keep that in mind. He did say that Invenergy was one of the largest companies in the nation doing this type of work. just because they're big doesn't mean they're good at doing it well in the way that the communities need it or want it. That just means they're doing it well for their profit margin and their ability to work the systems. Similarly, the Ohio Power Siting Board, yes, they see lots of cases. However, their directive is not in any way to actually really decide on the siding. Basically, they're there just to make sure that all the paperwork is done correctly and not to impede development. So if you're actually watching the proceedings, they do the minimum requirement, and their directive is to help further these agendas, these green initiatives. Touching specifically on solar panels, I would like to see the actual data that shows that this is ever going to be carbon negative or carbon sparing. We're talking about 3,000 container ships coming from China, and just the carbon emissions alone from a shipping from a container ship coming from China, coming to the best port I could find when I ran my analysis, which would be possibly in Savannah, Georgia, and then trucking or training these things up here, and then driving them across from wherever they land, and then installing them. Just the transportation costs alone, we're talking thousands and thousands of tons of CO2 if we're going to use that as our metric. Please.
So, I think that we're really early. Can I ask a question to how many, has Infinity contacted how many people in this room? And their offers were what, not taken, not desired, or?
If I can speak on behalf of the offers that were presented, many people, as we mentioned, were blindsided by all this. So all of us did pretty much what we all normally do is we called up our local family attorney, whoever we have on retainer, or someone to use the past, presented the contract to the attorneys. I don't know of anyone's attorney that said, oh, that's a good deal, sign it. They all said, ooh, this doesn't look very good. I wouldn't sign anything. And then again, because we're learning on the fly, the only advice I personally gave to anyone was have an attorney read it several times. And if you think you can negotiate a better deal, do so. From my experience, now that we're learning about this, reaching out to other groups across other states that have dealt with energy, dealt with other developers, the monetary amounts that they put into these good neighbor agreements, aptly named, varies widely. And from what I'm seeing, they're starting off awfully low. Specifically, when you deal with wind, some of these contracts that have been offered in other states and in Ohio dealing with wind, which is part of the main reason why House Bill 118 is kind of going through the way it is. It's going to start off with wind. That was the first projects the Ohio Power Siting Board was really putting in, or approving, I should say. People were being offered a $500,000 one-time cash payment, or they were offered some sort of indexing, price matching based on the value when they went to sell their home to compensate for the devaluation. So all these things are taking away local zoning and then having put everything in the state's control in this board that basically rubber stamps everything. They are successfully dividing and conquering the entire state. Every single project gets treated as an individual project. So a similar project that Invenergy is doing is Hardin 1, Hardin 2, Hardin 3. Hardin 1 by itself went through the siting process, got approved. They plopped in 1,800 acres of panels. Hardin 2 comes through. They're approving that project separately, even though it's directly adjacent to the previous project. So now, one of the deals, if you guys have a chance to read the House bill, one of the issues that is part of the House bill is the cumulative effect of all these projects. So there's a community that started off with, hey, the solar generation plant is over there. It's in the rural part. But then when they link them all together, the entire community is surrounded by acres. And we're not talking about the people like us that have larger properties and we're allowed on sticks. We're talking about their higher density population area right up against residential is going to be surrounded. So now it's like, hey, wait a minute, we didn't sign up for this. Siting board treats individual projects as freestanding. Any questions on that, or add a few more to touch on Squire?
So Squire was provided the same opportunity, to speak. So I don't think it's this meeting's place to have a contact with with him, and unless he agrees.
Just in general, because
Okay.
he referenced going to the website and people getting educated. And so he offered one place for education. I just would like to offer another. The goal of the land developer is always to paint the rosiest picture possible. They want the project to go. Often their literature is, grassy meadows with the glint of a small solar panel in background. If you actually look at the siting board documentation that's submitted, there is no requirement for any amount of acreage of these pollinator grasses to be planted. There's no minimum requirement. There's no minimum requirement for screening or blocking, which was the argument I made to you last time regarding zoning. We put in a self-use storage facility, and we've got minimum screening requirements. No screening requirements whatsoever for these projects for the siting board, and the land developer doesn't want to do it because it's not required. It's going to cost them more money. Similarly, pollinators, the pollinating grass. There's not going to, there will be no grass underneath those solar panels that's going to be worth anything. They cluster them as close together as possible. They have gravel access roads everywhere because they need to get at the panels. There's not the Hardin one had maybe a tenth of an acre of grass planted that I could find in the plans and 14 trees for the entire project. So to, again, point at the pictures that Energy has, say this is what it's look like. That's not what it looks like. A simple Google search will give any number of images that show the truth of how these things actually end up looking. And then last thing, they constantly talk about how they compare right now it's being farmed. So farming, you have runoff from, fertilizer. And they say, well, that'll go away. The drainage will improve. The water quality will improve for the local watersheds, the water runoff. In reality, what they do is, it's in Invenergy's submittal for this project, the entire site shall be graded and compacted. And any swale larger than 5% grade will be flattened. Any excess dirt will be put off the side, and the landowners will be allowed to do with it whatever they desire. So if there's any topsoil left, that's going to be put elsewhere at the landowner's discretion. That entire site will be compacted. When you compact soil, as you know, we live out where we live, we're working with field tile systems. Anything that's clay, that's field tile, that's in the ground, is going to be crushed almost instantly. It's easily crushed if you don't run the large weight distribution tires on the equipment that works land currently. On top of that, when you compact the soil, now you have an impervious surface. So now let's say the tiles did survive the compacting process. An impervious surface, these little field tiles work because the ground is loose. It filters down like a French drain, then it's carried off. The compacted clay is going to be an impervious surface, and now we have surface water runoff that will get put on all of our properties, and it's going to be faster to get to Hell Ranch and Darby. And then you might say, well, they're required to submit a drainage program for the Power Siting Board. Again, this organization is supposed to be there to help. There's an EPA person on there. There's a certified engineer that's on this board that's supposed to make sure this is a safe process going forward. The drainage program is basically two pieces of paper that says, if we happen to notice we find that we accidentally hit a field tile, we promise to repair it. They didn't do any hydrology. They didn't do any hydrology analysis. They, through their own proof, basically, are trying to claim that it is not going to be impervious soil. It's compacted. It's impervious soil. So no matter what rosy sunshine sales pitch they give you, in reality, it's almost always the opposite. Even right back to the good neighbor agreement name, it's almost always the opposite. Did I miss anything? Oh, I did. Going back to your involvement in as trustees. I mentioned it before, maybe it was missed with the other stuff. Will you guys be asking the zoning board to establish zoning for everything else that still falls under your purview, which is less than 50 megawatts for wind and for solar? Is that back on your radar? Did that get missed?
I addressed that with Connie, the zoning inspector today.
Okay.
And she said that, she point blank said that both, that private, small groups are state protected. So that, unless these House bills get passed, if the House bills get passed, I guess that gives some kind of authority back to the township. But as of right now, the township has no authority my conversation with her today. And she said she asked our law director, and I want to follow up on that with the law director. But my understanding as of right now is that those are also individuals are exempt by the state at the current time.
So my understanding, and again, this, like, as we said, we're learning on the fly. My understanding is anything that's considered behind the meter, basically private use, does fall under local zoning. It falls under normal building code requirements. It falls under normal electrical code requirements. So all those should still apply. It's only 50 megawatts and larger in significant solar or wind development that you are being preempted by the siting board. And I pointed out that the reason for that is because, one, local building code and residential applications. Two is residential disagreements. If someone puts up a wind turbine and it's flickering, that flickering is obviously a nuisance, and they have to address it at the siting board with large installations. Someone would have to deal with it at the local level for a private installation. Same with solar panels. So, like, as far as I know, like, I think that the clarification might be, is it a significant project with that 50 megawatt threshold? If not, that should be under local, to my knowledge.
At any rate, that's up to the zoning board, the zoning commission. The zoning township zoning laws are a moving target. They're brought on by what the majority of the residents want. And anytime that somebody wants to bring something to the zoning board to discuss, there's a procedure. You call zoning to ask them, if there's other residents that would like to pursue that, and then it'll go to the zoning commission, and then the zoning commission will bin it and look at all the laws and legal requirements. And if it's something we can do and the majority of the residents want it, we have no issues with it.
So then, does that mean that every zoning law that we have in the township has all been reactionary, and we've allowed, for example,
No.
the one U-store to go up and be a horrible eyesore with, chain link fence and no trees, and then we reacted to it? Or is it proactive?
And the zoning code has been in place, and they do a review every 3 or every 5 years. I don't know where we're at in that cycle as far as the next normal review, but an issue like solar may not be in the zoning code because we've never had an issue with it before. There's no complaint that I'm aware of that comes from zoning. And, our building department is commercial building department. So the building permits would be through residential with the county. And I'd have to check to see how they, you'd mentioned the electric and the type of permits, and have to check to see if it falls under that. But other than this project, I've never had anything solar or wind related as far as a phone call or even a question similar to it.
I can speak from personal experience, just because the township doesn't do their own engineering review. Franklin County does. I personally had to submit a full set of plans to you and to Franklin County. And I'm assuming those were supposed to have been reviewed, but that is the norm, is that you got a full set of plans, so did Franklin County. Anything you connect to your electrical box at all is supposed to be, inspected. And so if we're talking about private use behind the meter type applications, I am quite sure that I can dig up some other townships and cities in Ohio that have zoning on the books because of, resident nuisance. But again, what we're talking about is being retroactive. I was asking about being proactive. It makes sense maybe not to have anything on the books from 15 years ago, because really solar panel technology has only just now started dropping down to where consumers can't afford to put 500 square feet of panels on their roof and get any type of benefit. 15 years ago, that wasn't even a possibility. So that makes sense. But again, I'm asking for many reasons if we can be proactive on everything that is technically in your domain, assuming it is in your domain.
I talked to somebody from the Franklin County zoning board and they said that it was up to the siting board, that they had nothing to do with this.
With this project, no, we're talking about small.
Oh,
We're talking about anything smaller than 50
oh, okay.
megawatts.
Because he gave me the phone number of the siting board
Yeah.
and said it's all up to them.
Yeah.
You have to make a case to them.
So Steve, you want him to make a case to the appeals board to commission? Is that what you're asking?
No, I think it's, if I could, I can just talk to Connie and let them know that, you know, it's been brought up as an issue and further discuss that with the zoning and see where they're going to reduce it.
So currently, we do not have residential building permits. So the reason that you had to provide building permits to our zoning department is before to go any farther to Franklin County, they require that the township review the plans to ensure that it meets all zoning guidelines before it goes on. So when you drop a set of plans off here, they're checking distances and setbacks and stuff like that before the plan goes on. We'll have to look into the other stuff. That's all.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is basically just like a shed or anything else, or any structure I would attach to a home. That process for anything less than 50 megawatt should be the same process. I mean, it'd be the same as, you know, I can't put a shed right against the property line. We got setbacks for that. It should also stand to reason I can't also put a windmill or solar array directly, you know, on the property line. So it's not, I'm not trying to be cute about it. It's literally a hole in the zoning. And let's say, for example, this House bill goes through. If we don't have anything on the books at all that even gives any guidelines, guidance at all, then let's say it does go through, or let's say it doesn't go through. Let's say Invenergy says no, due to the community outpouring of negative support for this, Congress support. What would you guys like? Well, we haven't had any. Hopefully, this will become an agenda that going forward, become a regular thing. But if we don't have anything on the books to reference, well, normally this is what we do. If we scale it up, we can go off this. Or if we don't have, a general public opinion, then what are you going to answer? So those scenarios require some further conversation of what we want as a community. Because I'm pretty sure Tim doesn't want me to put 100-foot, windmill right next to the horses and spook them every time that the wind blows a little bit. So.
Okay. I mean, I got to check. We got to check with, I got two conflicting stories with legal, so.
Yeah.
Who is our legal director?
Who's that?
Who is our legal person?
Pete Griggs. Peter Griggs, I don't know what the law firm of,
Bruce's.
well, yeah, they changed the name. Bruce.
Johnson Briggs.
Yeah.
And they changed the name.
That's what they changed it to, used to be Law of Roses.
Well, at any rate, it's Pete Griggs. I think they changed it.
You're wrong again.
No, that happened. So,
Please don't know.
It's Pete Griggs.
Peter Griggs is our law director. Yes. They were discussing the firm name, but Pete Griggs is the law director.
I'd like to give Invenergy a chance to address anything they heard tonight.
Of course. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Good job, buddy.
I need a code for the snow job we're about to get.
Mr. Chairman, I'll put Josh on. Josh, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'd like to start off with your public meeting. What's the standing and what should we expect for your public meeting in this area?
Yes, so I do have an update in that regard. We are working to finalize logistics for a open house style meeting on April 9th. And as we discussed during the last meeting, we'll send out appropriate notices and continue to be in contact with you all regarding those specific logistics for that open house meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Else you'd like to address tonight?
Yeah, I think, similar to the last meeting, I just want to maintain that Invenergy is open to discussing our application materials with folks, and all of the environmental scientific due diligence, the civil engineering due diligence, and the electrical engineering due diligence that is performed by those professionals. I think there's a lot of nuances and a lot of information out there regarding solar projects and past solar projects and other solar projects. And I would encourage folks to, again, review this project's application materials and this project's solar panels, this project's vegetative management plan, this project's view shed analysis, because I feel that we've put together all of this information from all of these industry professionals and come up with this due diligence to assist us in coming up with the design of the project. And we are now at a stage where we're trying to incorporate some additional design input from local stakeholders and to listen to concerns. And so again, I would just encourage folks to reach out to us and talk through any of those questions and concerns that we can go over. I can show folks where in our vegetative management plan it does call out for the use of pollinators in our seed mix. I can walk through with folks about how our panels do not have any toxic materials and how they pass the EPA's T-clip test. I can show folks where in our again scientific reports and studies where it talks about the ecological impact to the soil and to the watershed, how it is improved from the current agricultural use with fertilizers and soil erosion and soil microbiome health. I encourage folks again to reach out to us and we can talk about the OPSB process on how, again, these are very nuanced specialty topics for a specialty type of development project where the current system in Ohio is set up such that projects like this go to this Ohio Power and Siting Board that does have within their application process a portion that does discuss their land use review and their zoning review. And our project goes to this board, composed of these industry professionals that do understand some of these mechanics of again, these environmental sciences, these civil engineering concepts, and these electrical engineering concepts. So again, just encouraging folks to take a look at those materials and engage with us, give us any kind of design input. A few comments about our good neighbor agreements. Again, we've tried to engage folks in a discussion on those good neighbor agreements and look for any kind of requested input or changes to such agreements. I can very emphatically say that supporting the project or requiring Mr. Galbraith to come here tonight to speak to you all, he is not contractually obligated to do such a thing. He's certainly motivated being a participant in the project, but there's no contractual obligations to support the project and to make further efforts. So again, I understand there's a lot of information out there. I understand this is a change for the area. Again, we hope to continue to work with folks on proposed setbacks that we can incorporate into the project if the project does go through, proposed landscape screening elements. Again, if the project does go through, different fencing components, different fencing materials for the project if the project does go through. And again, I very much encourage folks to engage with us on the due diligence, the environmental impacts, the civil engineering concepts regarding our earthwork and the compaction and the impacts that again, our environmental scientists and a team of engineers has prepared. You know, again, the development of a building project is, you know, a very typical thing. So at the township and county levels, you know, there's building permitting processes and infrastructure and processes set in place for such projects. This is a specialty type of development that again, the process in Ohio is for it to go to this specialized board at a state level to review all of these complex and nuanced items. But again, we certainly don't want, you know, local stakeholders to be in the dark regarding this project's facts, this project's due diligence, this project's commitment to landscape screening, to setbacks, to working with folks. So again, I just encourage folks to reach out to us and be active in a dialogue regarding this project.
So you got a time frame that you're looking at for your meeting on April 9th?
Again, I apologize. We are still finalizing those logistics. I imagine it would be something starting in the early afternoon and have a few hours for folks to come in and we'll have different stations set up and folks can engage with different specialty kind of aspects of the project, whether it be, you know, the outreach or zoning or design. And it's kind of, we're working on that, finalizing that format, but that's what it's looking right now, kind of starting in the early afternoon.
Thank you. Yes.
Location?
They said they didn't have that yet. Do you have a time frame on when you think you'll finalize the time, the place, and the date?
I'm hoping we can get that out to folks and again, start notifying folks next week.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman, Jeff, who is also with Josh as well, he put his information in the chat, info@pleasantprairiesolar.com, and his phone number 380-210-9097, and encourage people to reach out if they have any questions.
Okay, so anybody got anything else? We got one more personnel issue to go into after we get done. I see somebody else is coming up, so.
Yes. John Harrison, I live at 1040 Moran Road. First of all, I'm like Scott and Griffin. I appreciate you wanting to support the House and the Senate bills upon their approvals and to address the trying to intervene, because our voices need to be heard, sir. And your voices along with ours, because you do represent us. You are our elected officials. I know you say that you have no governing power against us. Well, none of us have any governing power, but yet our voices can be heard. And yet I feel that with elected officials standing shoulder to shoulder with us also tends to send a message. In regards to Invenergy, I had a little bit of an issue, and I realize this has nothing to do with you guys, but it's just to show you the kind of people that we're potentially dealing with is their lack of information is vague. Okay, if they are the largest company, solar company, and they've been through this before, why are they coming out with these vague information on how they're going to do the setbacks? And when you look at the setbacks and the provisions they want to make, don't really seem to want to protect the homeowners, because the situation is they brag about how the Hardin County project is such a win-win Pollyanna situation, and the people up there are just loving. Well, see, it's not completely truthful the way they present it, because when you do the research, there are Scott, 65 homes that are only directly affected up there in Hardin County, because that is an agricultural area. Now, the area on Moran Road, on the west side of the road, is all deemed agricultural. Everything on the east side of the road is not, is residential. Okay, so there will be no buffer zone between us and that site. Whereas up in Hardin County, that is the case. So that's why those people have no issues with it, because there's such a buffer. There's only 65 immediate homes affected. Whereas in us, we have what, over 300 homes potentially that are going to be impacted by this. So my thing is that I'm trying to share with you folks is that they're not, I don't feel they're being completely honest. One other thing is the way they're reaching out, this good neighbor agreement. Not that I wanted a good neighbor agreement, but I have to be very suspicious when the neighbor on this side of me gets a good neighbor agreement, the neighbor on the other side of me gets a good neighbor agreement, and I don't, and guess what? All three of us are going to be looking at the same site that the solar panels are going to sit in. So they're picking and choosing who they want to sit down and work out contractual agreements. Why didn't they go across? And we've had, and I think it might have been Josh, I don't recall, had to come out and knock on my door after we had complained at the initial Zoom meeting with Invenergy and asked him, why is this happening? Why are you just picking and choosing? He wouldn't give us a straight answer. That makes me suspicious. So my trust level with them, I'm sorry, I'm not impressed with it. I'm not against green energy, but again, sir, I've lived in Prairie Township all my life. Okay, and then I moved away, but I didn't come back to it. I come back here to live in a country living environment because it's very peaceful, very enjoyable. I didn't move here to live in and look at an industrial site of living. And I think I speak for everyone else here as well. You know, everyone on the most impacted, I would say, are on Vernon and Poolwhite. It is in our front yards. It's in our backyards. And for some people that just don't want to seem to feel as compassionate about it, it's because it's not in their front yards. It's not in their backyards. But I would lay down every dime that I own as a bet that if it went in their yards, they would feel the way we feel. So that's all I'm saying. I'm thankful that you are at least going to look at the intervention and support of the House bills. Again, and I repeat myself one last time, is that our voices need to be heard, but we need your voices with us as well. Thank you.
They came to my door. I hadn't even known about this. They came to my door.
Yeah.
And they tried to get me to sign a good neighbor thing. And they told me all my neighbors had signed that I was just the last one. So I called up my neighbors and they said, no, we didn't sign that. And my brother's an attorney and I showed it to him and he said, why would anybody sign this? If something happens and you get cancer because you're being irradiated to death, you lose all your rights to sue them. If they don't put in the proposed fencing and the proposed all the other stuff that they say that they're going to do, you have to get an attorney, and then the attorney's going to say, but you signed. You can't do this. And if you don't sign, if they don't do it, you at least can take them to court, but it'll cost you thousands. So we got to stop this before it gets to that.
Fortunately, telling everyone that all their neighbors have also signed is a very classic tactic they've been using.
Yeah, well, you can ask Mike. I called him up and I said, hey, Mike, did you sign this? And he said, no.
You know, we won't leave until everybody's had their say. So go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to point out there are a bunch of liars.
Steve Hennessy, 1265 Alton Road. I've only lived here 2 years. I lived in Columbus, city of Columbus for 30 years. An opportunity came to me 2 years ago, and I had gold mine. I tell you what, the opportunity to live in Prairie Township, because I knew a lot of people that lived here, and it's a good community. I love it. And the sunsets are to die for. And
yeah,
I'm going to lose that. If this takes place, I'm going to be looking out my back window at solar panels. I mean, you have to sit on my back porch and appreciate what I see. And my tax dollars, personally, I feel are doing their job. I've seen the road crews. I've seen what Prairie Township does for me. I truly appreciate it. And I have to commend Mr. Galbraith. what the Galbraith family has done for this community is unheard of. For disabilities, children with disabilities, and for the Metro Parks, you know, I truly appreciate it, and I thank him for that also. You know, I listen to Josh, and he doesn't make a bit of sense to me. He doesn't. He's not telling me anything. I mean, he's just speaking in general terms. He's, you know, we can meet with him. That's his job. He's a politician. He's just trying to get us to buy into this on an individual basis. And I'm not going to do it. I mean, I've read that good neighbor agreement. It doesn't benefit me whatsoever. I moved into this township for a reason. And when they take that away from me with those solar panels, I think I don't know the proper word, but it's a detriment to the township. I mean, there's a reason why I moved here, and I oppose the solar panels.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name's Larry Chris. I live at 635 Vernon Road. I've had several conversations with the people from Inver Energy and asked specific questions about this good neighbor agreement that they have asked us to sign. I believe I sent them to you, Mr. Peters, a while ago. I've heard nothing back from them. Every time I ask them a question, they're like, well, we don't know, we'll get back with you. So as he said, I have very little good feeling about this good neighbor agreement. I feel like they're trying to get everybody a different good neighbor agreement to make them happy. And if they get more people to sign it by telling them what they want to hear, then it's good for them. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Michael, got anybody online?
No one else. Josh just has, the name of the gentleman. He didn't get the name of the gentleman that spoke, 2 speakers ago. So I don't think we're gonna, I think he just thought, he didn't get your name. Yeah. If you'd be able to state your name.
John Harrison.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it.
He knows us.
Yeah, I mean, okay, that's bad. We talked to them.
And if I hear the word due diligence one more time, I'm just gonna get sick.
Oh, any other comments on the solar? The other thing I'll throw out there is all 3 of us have our cell phone numbers on the website. They're available. If you have a question, or you want to get together, I'm sure we're all open. I'd rather work stuff out. I mean, instead of misinformation going around. And we're open. We're here to represent, you know, not just the people on Renan Road. I mean, there's 17,000 people in the township, and we have to balance that and represent everybody to the best of our ability. So I appreciate the coming here. I love residents with passion, and we need to see it. So I'm sorry. I want to apologize again for the confusion and making you wait outside. That's unacceptable. We'll try to do better. Next meeting, we'll probably have it at the firehouse on Hina over here at Station 241 in one of the bays. So if nobody else has any other questions, we're going to go into executive session. We've got a couple more agenda items. And if you want to say a final word, now's the time to do it.
Just briefly, will the solar issue be a regular agenda item going forward, or is it going to be brought up like this and kind of open the conversation?
Well, I mean, until we'll talk about it, whoever shows up, somebody wants to show up. I don't think until there's more information out there that after the public hearing on the 19th, I think that's a pretty important hearing to get, at least to give Infinergy a chance to address any conversation that the public has. And then after that, we probably need somehow to inform the rest of the township residents. Not exactly sure how we go about that. And I have no idea how the rest of the township, I've tried to be doing a little survey of people coming in, what their feelings are, and it's mixed. That's just the way I thought it was. I went to the comments on the public utility site on this case. There's 6 letters that were sent in. I'm sure after I mention it, the letter amounts are going to go up. But those 6 letters, there's 3 for the project and 3 against. I don't know how much bearing that holds, but that tells me that there's not very many people that know about the project. So we're here to support. If you got questions, bring them up. We have meetings every other week. It needs to be on the agenda, we'll put it on the agenda. We'll stay here as long as it takes, and we'll do whatever's the right thing to do at the time.
Remember, the 3 people that are for it probably don't have land affected by it. Of the 19,000 people, it doesn't affect all of us.
I would say you are correct, and that is
I
something.
know I'm correct.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. So we'll move on to old business. Is there anybody got any old business, any new business? Thank you. I'll be in contact. Okay. Any public comment? Anybody online got any questions? Are there any announcements? Hey, Rob, you got any announcements?
I don't believe I do. Unless you know one I forgot, then I can certainly announce it, but I don't have anything.
Okay, with that said, we're going to move into executive session. I move that the board goes into executive session as per ORC section 121-22D1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of public employee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Aye. And 11 coming show, it's at 8:55.